this video, I'm going to talk about 6 narcissistic behaviors coming from childhood trauma, CPTSD. So if this is your first time here, hello, my name is Fran. I am a childhood trauma healer, and also right now I'm a psychodynamic psychotherapist under training. If you're watching this video, chances are that you get confused about your behaviors. You know you're not a bad person, you don't have bad intentions, but sometimes you do display some toxic behaviors that resemble what a narcissist would do. I used to wonder about the same thing. I used to repetitively ask my therapist, well, am I a narcissistic personality disorder? And now I wanted to share with you what I've learned and how that is actually related to CPTSD. If you wonder about your behaviors, you reflect on your behaviors, you feel guilty, you feel ashamed, and you are looking to make amends, chances are that you're probably not a narc, because that's a whole new different level and it's very difficult to treat. But you may wonder, well, why do I display those behaviors though? I'm not a bad person. I don't mean to do it, but sometimes I do hurt people. I do get absorbed into my own world. Well, hear me out. Number one is that it's very possible that you learn those behaviors from observing unhealthy interaction patterns. Especially if you grew up around narcissistic parents, it's very easy for you to get identified with their behaviors unconsciously over the years. And I think most importantly is that narcissistic behaviors are used as a defense against the feeling of lack, the feeling of inferiority. Like you feel worthless, you feel broken, you feel powerless, then you have to feel super important, super omnipotent to compensate. And as a child, it's very difficult to realize that you're not getting enough love, you're not getting enough nurturance. So you have to use those things so that people can love you. The first thing you need to understand is that having narcissistic behaviors doesn't mean that you're toxic to the bone. It just meant that we learned those unhealthy ways of coping. We learned those unhealthy ways of interactions and communications as a child. If you have touched the worthless wound and worked on it, if you feel more complete, if you feel more secure within yourself, you don't need those defenses. You don't need to act in a narcissistic way. You don't have to prove to the world, you don't have to be important to feel good about yourself. So those narcissistic behaviors will automatically be phased out. Now let's talk about narcissistic behaviors that are actually coming from childhood trauma. The first one is that there's an unspoken rule of no mistakes and no apologies, because it's just too vulnerable. Realizing that we're wrong means that we are not perfect, we're flawed. And admitting to others that we're wrong means that we need them, we're dependent. To us, pride is everything. We would rather risk the relationship than admitting that we're wrong. We need them because we don't ever want to expose our vulnerabilities. So we may do what Nancy McWilliams called apology substitution. It means that maybe you had an argument with your partner the other day, right? But instead of admitting that, well, I'm sorry, I had an outburst, I'm really sorry, I said something, really hurtful, you probably would just make him dinner and clean the house for him and wait for him to come home. And that is a gesture of you admitting that you're wrong, but you would never say the word like, well, I'm really sorry, I need you, because it's just too vulnerable. And we may go as far as dodging conflicts, we may shift blames, we may even lie if we have to, just to protect our perfect facade. So next time I challenge you to initiate small amends. Like you don't really have to beg or lower yourself by saying that, well, please come back to me, I'm so sorry. You don't need to say any of those. You could just say like, well, I realized I shouldn't have said those words, though they're really hurtful. Just start by revealing your vulnerability one layer more every time. Sometimes feeling vulnerable is really hurtful. You may cry, you may feel heartbroken a little bit, but I promise you it gets better, it gets stronger, because you will see the rewards of harmonious relationships. You know that how good that feels, instead of you being alone, just I don't need anyone. I'm not flawed, I don't need you, I'm not vulnerable. I think the first step to change this behavior is just to admit vulnerability, maybe to yourself for the first time, and then gradually extend it to others. The second behavior is compulsive lying. Whether it's lying to get attention, to get people off your back, to keep emotional distance. You may even lie about pointless things like, well, what did you eat for breakfast? What's your favorite gym wear or stuff? Sometimes you don't even understand yourself because there's a whole new level of exhaustion. Like there's a web of lies you have to track every day. You don't want to expose yourself as a liar, but we get confused as well. Why do we lie about those pointless things? It's not like your life is at risk. You need to understand that telling survival lies is CPTSD children's skill 101. We have learned to lie to ourselves when we're children. Like maybe mommy loves me, daddy is just mad, he's not a bad person, he's just upset. Or you tell lies to your classmates or friends because you don't want them find out the horrible or miserable things you're going through at home or how vulnerable you are. So you start telling lies to yourself to prevent yourself from feeling the sadness and loneliness from not getting enough love or attention. Then you start to lie to other people because there's this chronic hypervigilance and readily anger towards them. When others truly concerned about you, they care about you, you think they're kidding you, you think they're fucking with you, you think, well, what do you want this time? Why are you being so nice to me? I don't need this, I don't need your pity or something. Most importantly, we don't want to get caught in our little lies, so we are very defensive all the time. So next time I challenge you to maybe just promise yourself, I'm not gonna lie to trivial questions. When others ask about, well, how did your day go? Or how's your mood today? As long as it doesn't touch your sore spot, you would try your best to answer it honestly. If this is a difficult question, you can say, well, I will get back to you later. You don't have to answer right now and make up lies. You could just, take some time to decide the level that you want to expose yourself, or the vulnerability you want to expose yourself, or how close you want to get to this person. So you don't really take time to think it through, but you don't need to lie to protect yourself like habitually. So that is the first step towards changing. And also I want to let you know that there's no shame in doing that. When I was a kid, I lied a lot I lied to myself, I lied to people around me, because mostly I wanted to protect myself. I feel unsafe. Growing up in difficult environment is hard enough. You don't need to self-sabotage yourself or blame yourself because you're already really doing the mission impossible. The number 3 behavior is that you tend to be very self-centered. There might be this entitlement that you need things to be all about you. You prefer to talk about your own issues because you think you have gone through enough, and you tend to find listeners instead of hanging out around successful or charming, attractive people because you have the secret fear of being compared down. That is why you often get easily evoked of jealousy. You may compete to feel special, feel important. You may, have those attention-seeking behaviors, be dramatic so that you could be focused on all the time. To others, you may seem really insensitive or unsupportive at times, but in our defense, it's not like we don't want to be there for them. It's just we struggle daily, mentally, with our own issues, with our own shits. We really need others to be there for us, to save us, to, pull us out of this dead zone. We really don't have much energy left to be there for others. So one thing I wanted to repetitively point out in this video is that narcissistic behaviors are used as a defense against the feeling of lack, the feeling of inferiority. So we don't choose to behave in this way. It's just we feel too insecure, we feel too anxious. That is why we have to feel important, to have to feel omnipotent so that we could be balanced out of this painful experiences. And that is why you have number 4 behavior, that is control issues. When somebody is trying to demand something, to control something, it might seem like that this person is at the upper power because they are more of the dominant one. But contrary to what you're thinking, those people who have control issues are actually very vulnerable because there's only a limited space, a range of behaviors they can accept. If you do things out of his or her expectation, they are gonna freak out because their ego cannot handle the sense of loss of control. I think this is a very typical CPTSD behavior because a lot of us, we grew up around difficult environment. We don't feel safe, so we need to be hyper vigilant about the environment, read and scan the environment for threats, and carefully monitor how others would respond to us, how others feel about us, so that we could have a false sense of control. So I think control issues, it might seem like a deal breaker to some people because we put bad labels to it, like it's you don't want to hang out with someone who has control issues. It's exhausting, it's difficult. But from our point of view, it's because we're anxious, we're insecure, and that's how we do to bring us a tiny sense of comfort. So there's no need to be ashamed of it. When we naturally feel more secure, when we naturally trust the world more, we would start to drop those rigid rules. We would start to control and monitor everything. That is what social anxiety is all about. In new environment, we're not sure how people are going to respond to us, but we anticipate a cold and rejecting and unresponsive role from others, from the world. So we need to self-protect. We need to be hyper-vigilant. We don't trust they're going to meet our needs. That is why oftentimes we have to carefully manipulate others. We have to, to cheat, to lie, to make up stories so that others could stay and meet our needs. Because we don't think that they want to. They automatically want to do things for us because we don't feel worthy of it. And the fifth behavior is that we are quick to anger and hostility if we don't get our way. A lot of this anger is that we have this hidden expectation that others should meet our needs. We want others to be there for us, but we are too ashamed to talk about it, to demand, because we don't believe they naturally want to. So when others tiny bit, dismiss our needs or wishes, or they don't do things on our terms, we would be quick to anger. We would be like, I knew this. I knew you never wanted to be there for me. You're just doing this because you're nice. You don't really want me. You don't really love me. One example I often talk to my therapist about is that, I want someone who goes to the fish market because he knows I'm there. I'm that fish he needs. Not someone who just happens to want a fish today and happens to pick me out of the 10 fishes because I'm fatter, I'm fresher, or whatever. I think this is a big difference for people with unfinished childhood business. When others don't do as we expect, we criticize others the way maybe our parents criticize us. We treat others the way our parents treat us. We learn the way we interact with the world from our parents. So we may act out, we may be super defensive, we may just shut down. However scary those behaviors might look, but it's just a helpless child, sending out signals that I need help, I need attention, I need love. Can somebody please come and take care of me? And we are using the ways we only know how to get our needs met. Last one is that we overly focus on superficial things. For lots of people with CPTSD, superficial things are so important because they are attention grabbing. You may pay extra attention to appearances, your fame and status, how obsessive you're about self-improvement, about being perfect, because those things are what we believe that others will be willing to stay for. If we don't have those things, if we don't have the look, we don't have the money, we don't have the fame or external things, we don't believe others will be there for us. Focusing, working on superficial things are so much easier than healing our inside vulnerabilities. We can be super pretty, we can have 100 plastic surgeries every day, we can get the perfect body, we can have $1 million, but by the end of the day, when you're by yourself, there's this hollow, this brokenness inside that you have to face after all. No matter how much you're trying to convince others you're worthy of love, you're good, you're perfect, you're amazing. If you cannot convince yourself that you are worthy of being loved, it's not gonna work. You're gonna still feel the pain. Instead of building superficial stuff, because that's easy, that's so easy, right? Traveling, taking pictures, being pretty, how hard is that? But being vulnerable, being courageous to face ourselves is the most difficult thing. If you are interested in videos like fear of abandonment, people pleasing, I have playlists about it. I'm gonna put it up here somewhere. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.